Gentlemen, welcome to another session of the 16th Jaipur Literature Festival. We are protected by Dettol, and we hope you are too. Our next up session is a book launch, The Half Empress. Among the rulers of Jaipur, Maharaja Savai Jagat's name is taken with some contempt on account of his affair with a Tawaif, Ras Kapoor, who was the daughter of a Muslim mother and a Brahmin father. The Maharaja defied all norms and bestowed upon her title of Half Empress. With little experience, Ras Kapoor resolutely navigated her way through the cobwebs of royal life. But pitched against a fleet of plotters in an atmosphere filled with deceit, she finally fell into their trap and was imprisoned. There are many stories about her life ended, but today she is best remembered by the guides who routinely mention her as a celebrity prisoner at the famous Nahargarh fort. In her historical novel, The Half Empress, Tripti Pandey transports the reader to the royal corridors of 19th century Jaipur and brings to life the story of a formidable woman who has been deliberately omitted from history. May I now invite our speaker today and the author whose launch we have, Tripti Pandey, who's the author of this historical fiction, The Half Empress, published by Ebury Press, an imprint of Penguin Random House. Her other books include the award-winning coffee table book, India's Elephants, A Cultural Legacy, and Pushkar, Colors of the Indian Mystique. Deeply passionate about promoting tourism in India with a focus on living traditions and intangible heritage, Pandey was named the Woman of the Year by the Merchants Chamber of Commerce for her pioneering work in cultural tourism. Her landmark achievement has been the creation of the Desert Festival at Jaisalmer, which unfolded the living traditions of performing arts and crafts. Ladies and gentlemen, Tripti Pandey. Our moderator today is Milee Ashwarya, who's the publisher of the adult publishing group at Penguin Random House, and during her career, she has published a range of bestsellers across genres. An award-winning publisher, her focus has been on championing diverse voices, discovering talented debut writers, and building on the inclusive program at Penguin. We also have a special guest to help us launch the book today. Malashri Lal is a writer and academic with 16 books to her credit. She retired as professor of English department at the University of Delhi, and her specialization is in literature and gender studies. She was senior consultant to the Ministry of Culture and is a member of several international book juries. She has served on the advisory boards of the Sahitya Akademi and the Bharatiya Jnanpith. We will also have Chitra Banerjee joining in on a session later, but that's for later, and Milee will tell you more about that. We will now please have the book launch as well, after a few words from Malashri ma'am.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Jaipur. And welcome to a very special novel that has been written about Jaipur by my dear friend and brilliant author, Tripti Pandey. Jaipur is a city that is full of secrets, and Tripti has revealed one of the best kept secrets of this town in creating a novel about Ras Kapoor, who was called the Half Empress because she was a courtesan, and the person that she lived with, that's Jagat Singh Ji, wouldn't give her the position of a wife. But what I want to actually mention in a few minutes is the significance of what Tripti has done in this book. She has created what I can best call an imaginary biography, because we know hardly anything about Ras Kapoor. Yes, the tourists will tell you that she was a celebrity prisoner at Nahargarh, but who was this prisoner? Was her name really Ras Kapoor? There's a beautiful section that Tripti has written about when the baby is born and how she was named Ras Kapoor. And there is a little kind of a fable embedded even in the name, because it means camphor. And as Tripti puts it in the novel, a little bit of camphor is fragrant and beautiful, but too much of camphor is fatal. So from that kind of sensitive writing and awareness, what Tripti has done is unfurled the hidden stories of women who mattered in the history of Rajasthan and were not written about. There are passages in the book quoted from Colonel Todd, who had some nasty things to say about Ras Kapoor. She was a bad woman. She was a person who caused trouble in the court. The irony of it all is that a writer in today's century has to unearth stories that nobody has recorded before of these women. And Tripti has taken the trouble not only to study the archives, but the human memory by visiting artists, visiting old homes, going to the house where likely Ras Kapoor lived. These are tremendous achievements. I also want to make another point about this imaginary biography that we have to create about women, because a woman is always known in culture through relationship. We know about Ras Kapoor's phase of association with Jagat Singh, but we don't know anything about her childhood and nobody knows how she died. So what happened to the woman as an individual, as an identity? This is where the excellence of Tripti's writing creates this narrative. It is brilliantly done and unputdownable. I think there's one other point that I want to mention, and that is the culture within which Tripti has embedded this story. There are mythologies and folk tales of women who are married to non-human objects, maybe to a tulsi plant, maybe to other forms of life, because we don't make that divide between human and non-human life in our Rajasthan culture. And Ras Kapoor takes consolation in those practices and rituals. And the final irony, which I think Tripti has underscored brilliantly, is that Ras Kapoor is no more, Jagat Singh is no more. But in the geography of this city, when you go to Nahargarh, at least there are stories about Ras Kapoor. You can imagine her, as Tripti did, looking out of this window. But Jagat Singh doesn't even have a cenotaph to his name. I learned that only from Tripti's novel, that he had not even been given a cenotaph. So ultimately, in the longer duration of history, I do believe that Ras Kapoor wins out. And congratulations to Tripti Pandey for creating this riveting book about this amazing woman who ruled without ever being named the ruler.
I'll invite Tripti and Malashri now to launch the book today in front of all of you. Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, Tripti. It's been quite a journey, and I'm sure this first launch in Jaipur is special for you. You are a local star, a cultural icon, and my go-to person for anything that I want to learn about Jaipur or Rajasthan. And I could not have thought of a better writer for this book. She's an extraordinary woman and writer full of stories and folklores about Rajasthan. And this book is about the half empress, this unique character of Ras Kapoor. So why don't you tell our audience today who was Ras Kapoor and why was she shunned in history?
It's a very special story of a woman who I think, if I say who she was, of course, as world would like to say, very beautiful, very good looking, with a fantastic figure. But she was a brilliant woman who could rule the heart of the king and who could also go through the cobweb of the intrigues and maneuver her path and also see how she could survive in that atmosphere where all the Thakurs, all the feudals were just wanting her to get out. And most importantly, I do not know how many people in Jaipur would know, those who have been to City Palace. She was the only one to have got an apartment because the Raja refused. Jagat Singh Ji refused to come back from Amer to be at the City Palace without her. So much was her impact. And I repeat time and again, she was a most extraordinary woman who could sing well, who could dance well, who could sing in the name of Radha and Krishna, who could worship Shiva and Parvati, who could identify herself with Mahananda, and also see what was there in marriage. If you're married from your heart to the man, what does marriage mean? But she said she had to be proud in her relationship. It was coming together and stand for the man who at the end of the whole story could not stand for her. So that was Ras Kapoor all about.
Yeah, quite an extraordinary woman. And Malashri also mentioned, and we've been speaking about it lately too, why it's important to record the contribution of women characters in history. And this book, I think, does that. What?
It's important because mostly history was never written about women who were behind doors. It's not Noor Jahan's story, but there were women in the Zanane Dewari or around or within the city who had so much role to play and who had so much of intelligence, but they were omitted by history. Actually, Ras Kapoor gave me a chance to connect with the women of that period, be it Krishna Kumari of Mewar, be it Bani Thani of Kishangarh, and I could weave this story within the layers of the whole story, even Mahananda's story.
Absolutely. If I recall, you first encountered Ras Kapoor when you visited the Nahargarh fort. How was that journey, and what was it about Ras Kapoor that you decided to tell her story?
I'm sure my sisters are in the audience and they would know how many times we walked on that ramp to Nahargarh. And that time we did not have that nice road going there. And there was always somehow or the other in the lonesome forts and fortresses, you feel there is a story to know. There is a story imprinted in the walls. There is a story lying within the city overlooking, and you want to feel that. And the guides told me, you want to know who was living there. About everything else, they say there was a lady who was imprisoned here. And then I said to myself, and of course it went into my head, then I must say one thing, there's another lady in the audience, her father-in-law had this Nawab Sahab ki Haveli diagonally opposite the City Palace. And one day I went there and he said, this beautiful Haveli, even Ras Kapoor wanted to take over. Now again I hear about Ras Kapoor. Then he says, there is this little apartment, the palace. And so I personally feel that it took me so much time going around. Then when you asked me, we had done the book on elephants, but we were having a cup of tea and she asked me, she said, Tripti, you live in Rajasthan, you know so much of culture, you know so much of history. Why don't you come up with a nice historical fiction or cultural book? Just for a moment, I think not even 5 minutes that we sat quiet, and I said, I have a character. And Ras Kapoor appeared there, not as a ghost, but as somebody who captured my heart straight away to write about.
No, I still remember that conversation. I think the moment I heard about Ras Kapoor, I was really intrigued, and I wanted everyone to know about her story, and you've done it so beautifully in the book. Why don't you read us a passage from the book that captures the essence of Ras Kapoor?
I will. Of course, if I had the way, I would go on and on, but I found one story very interesting because she, in her childhood, as I imagine, every child like us wanted to sit on an elephant. And for a Tawaif's daughter, the elephant would be far away from her life. And then finally, when she appeared, the people around, some of the historians also said, She was like Noor Jahan, and she thought herself to be Noor Jahan because Noor Jahan as an empress came out on the elephant. So I would pick up from there our fascination for the elephant and what it triggered, what happened when she got onto elephant, and how Jagat Singh planned her getting onto the elephant, how Jaipur was stunned. When Jagat Singh ordered the elephant to sit on the floor, everyone was dumbfounded, including Ras Kapoor, who could not envisage his next move. He led her to the silver ladder and asked her to get onto the elephant. She was made comfortable on the back seat of the silver and gold howdah, while he sat on the front seat and signaled his staff to start the procession. The feudal lords were shocked to see how defiant their ruler had become. Of course, they attributed it to Ras Kapoor, who herself was ignorant actually about what Jagat Singh's plans were. But the people were delighted. For the first time, a lady was coming out on the royal elephant in a ceremonial procession, seated with the Maharaja. They had neither seen the queen nor Ras Kapoor before. They were overjoyed to see who they thought was their queen and her extraordinary beauty for the first time. Many were reminded of the Mughal emperor's beloved wife, Empress Noor Jahan, was the only lady known to ride an elephant with the ruler on hunting spree. And just a few more lines, Jagat Singh excitedly splashed colors on the people who were hailing him, intentionally throwing a fistful at Ras Kapoor and enticing her to splash some color towards him. As the cloud of colors of love appeared over the Maharaja, his beloved, the image of Krishna and Radha riding on the elephant floated before Ras Kapoor's eyes.
Beautiful. So this was a woman who rode the elephant with the emperor, was called, the half empress by you in the book. It's beautiful, brilliant, and she broke a lot of gender norms for her times. So what were some of the major gender norms that you spoke about in the book also that she transgressed?
From her childhood, as I imagined, I thought she had that sparked question when her father called her Dhruv Tara. So there is a section I talk about Dhruv Tara, and Dhruv was the male figure. So the child says, the girl child says, "But why are you calling me Dhruv Tara? I am not a boy, I am a girl." Then her father got sensitive about it. He said, any child can be a Dhruv Tara. And she made him say that because she got him feel embarrassed because she just said that was a boy, not a girl. And apart from that, even questioning the Thakurs, even talking to Thakur of Duni, and sort of guarding and telling the Maharaja, her beloved, that please take care, you are forging alliances with the Britishers. You are not aware the alliances of crisis will not last forever and you will be again in trouble.
Absolutely. So she was not only a confidant but possibly an advisor to Jagat Singh as well. In the book, you described in detail the period, the costumes and music of those times, and really researched, to bring out all those details. So how did you go about that?
Well, I'm raised in Jaipur, I'm raised in Rajasthan, so something stays with me. But years ago, or it is my ongoing project to work on the odhnis and the head coverings for women, what it denoted. So when I described Ras Kapoor's mother being spotted by the Panditji and Mishraji, she was wearing Motia Gulabi, which was worn on the full moon night of autumn, the Sharad Purnima. So that was easy for me to do this. Then also the anklet scene, the little anklet that Ras Kapoor lost in Hawa Mahal when she went to see as a child some concert. And the prince found it. He thought, who would be this girl, child, or the little girl who lost her anklet? And then I got onto that song, "Main to bhool aayi badila thari sej, mara pagara jhanjar do." And when he meets her at Amir, he takes out a dangling anklet, and she said, "Where did you find?" He said, "This was of that little girl." And then she says, "I was that little girl." So I could bring the songs. I could also say what khayal could be sort of rendered, what riyaz she did in Kanch Mahal. We can come to Kanch Mahal also.
No, no, absolutely. I think the details are amazing. I think the pains that you've taken to bring out the costumes, music, just to paint a picture of those times, I think it's really precious. And I recommend all of you to read the book to find out more. But you know, we really are not sure what happened to her in the later stage of her life, because she was imprisoned in the Nahargarh fort, and there are different versions of what happened next. What do you think?
When this other woman or a tawayaf, what happens to her once she's out of the palace? Who cares? Nobody writes. So there are people who thought that either she committed sati. Somebody said that to me. I spoke to the Thakurs, Dunlo Thakurs, both brothers, very big historians, and they said she could have never committed sati because she was a prisoner, and prisoner was never allowed, though there are situations in the history of Rajasthan where the tawayafs or the partayats or the paswans did commit suicide, commit sati, not suicide, commit sati. Technically, it could be suicide also, but sati along with the queens. And I thought Ras Kapoor must have just chosen to leave this world on her own. How I visualized it is for you to buy the book and read it, because if I tell whole story, my story will finish here only and my books won't.
No, we don't want that. We want all of you to get a copy and possibly get signed by Tripti, because we have the writer here today. You know, there are places, you know, in the book, the City Palace, Nahargarh Fort, Amir, and we have a lot of people in the audience who might want to, you know, go and see these places. So tell us a little bit about the connection of some of the places in Jaipur to Ras Kapoor that our audience should look forward to seeing, you know, when they're venturing out in the city.
If I were anybody, I would sort of mark a walk around Ras Kapoor and create the romance around it, like what has been done in Alaska, if you remember that. And what I want to really draw people's attention to is Kanch Mahal, the Glass Palace. The Glass Palace is a small little pavilion where Ras Kapoor was born and where she was raised. And I wanted to get there. It is in the bylanes of Johari Bazaar. I did not know where to find my access to that place, and somebody guided me, and I rang the bell, and who came out was a good friend and who is a hotelier himself. So he ushered me in, and I went up. What a beautiful pavilion which overlooks the street. Just imagine the Tawayaf's Kotha, where you sat and you could see straight onto that lane who was coming in. So that is there. Also Hawa Mahal, which people cannot realize that it's not just the beautiful facade. There were many concerts or the mehfils that took place there. City Palace, you walk around, you go to, of course, it's part of the sort of private apartments. The Zanani Diori, which I had the fortune of getting into, and but still, the ruins of Zanani Diori, someday I feel, if they cannot relate, they can read about it, but I hope someday the wisdom prevails on the government here to give it back to the royal family and restore all those palaces which are lying in ruins, and the Zanani Diori would come alive with all the music and dance that you can create. Amir, go to the Mansingh Palace, the Zanana side, because you just see the Sheesh Mahal, you light a candle, you click few pictures and you run out. Don't do that. Feel the silence, hear the emotions, and then Ras Kapoor will come before your eyes. And of course, if you've read the book, she would be there for you.
So now you all know what all to look out for when you are going to Amer, Nahargarh and other places. Tripti, you are a Jaipur girl, you know, your family, some sisters are here, and so are your friends. And you come from this, you know, very culturally rich family, lot of big achievers. You dedicated the book to your parents. How was it growing up, you know, in this extremely talented family, and what were your early inspirations?
I would say I'm very fortunate, and my good fortune is that I was raised in Rajasthan, that our forefathers came from UP, but I imbibed all sensitivity and all cultural nuances as I grew up here. And my both parents, they are not here. My mother would have been very proud because she was a voracious reader. And she read and she described characters out of the Bengali novels. See this, not only that, she went read Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas. She said what Tulsidas ji has said. My father recited poetry, and being in Rajasthan, I was sort of exposed to music, dance, and I had these sisters, of course, before my taking the route. And someone I'm thinking about today, I would just say my both brothers. And Piyush, who would have been here, I'm so proud that he read my first draft. The sisters knew nothing what I was doing. And he read my draft, and even now when he read the prelude again, he said, I want to tell you, it's going to be a very interesting read. So our inspiration comes from within the family. Rajasthan is all around me. If I was not born in Rajasthan, what would I have done? I do not know. And I only think I'm very proud Rajasthani. And Jaipur, you know, you walk, it gives you an inspiration in the morning. There is a story in every nook and corner. It's just about how you pick it up, how you go with it. So I personally feel, yes, I was lucky. I had very, very enlightened parents and who read a lot, but I have a very inspiring family. My sister from US is here, who was the only one. And these girls were thinking that why am I not writing my sister and my niece? Because she did half the research for me. She said, you know, there is something else that you can add on. So it was the other two very, very famous sisters did not know about it. But at the same time, the family inspires. They actually had not even seen this book. They just bought it, I guess. And this morning they asked me to show. I said, no, you will see the book right there only. So the inspiration is all around me. And I want to say, all the people of Rajasthan, the artists, the craftsmen, the women, the jewelry, everything is my inspiration.
Well, now we know some of those little family secrets, but thank you so much for being here and supporting Tripti and the Half Empress. We also have a very special person with us today.
Oh, yes.
Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. She's read the book, and I would like to invite her up on stage now to say a few words.
Thank you so much. If I have her with me, I think I have miles to go and follow her. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being here. You are the best audiences in the whole world. You really are. So, I am so happy to be here today to be a little part of this amazing unveiling of the Half Empress. And there are so many things I love about your book and your project. But what I love is you have taken a woman whom history has forgotten, and you have brought her back to life. The forgotten stories are so important. We learn so much, not only about that time, not only about what women were going through at that time, but we learn about ourselves. When we read about the Half Empress, we find something of her in us. And that is the magic of this book. So again, congratulations. What a beautiful book. What a beautiful story. What a beautiful glimpse into a world that we don't know, but that you, not only do you know it in your own life, but through your research, you brought it alive for all of us. So congratulations
Thank you
again.
so much, Chitra. Thank you. It's really special. And, you've given us a blurb, you read the book. And I think many more people will read it now. So thank you very much. We'll
Yes.
move on. Yes.
Yes, it is just an amazing story, and I hope it will encourage you after you read this one to look for other stories of women that have been lost and are found again, and maybe to look in your own lives for stories of women in your families or your communities that need to be remembered. So thank you for remembering this one.
Thanks a lot. And when I talked to Chitra, she was driving. She said, I'm typing my endorsement and your blurb on the iPhone. Is that all right, Tripti? I said, anything from you is fantastic for me. Thanks a lot. Thank you so. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chitra. We have some time for audience questions now. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll pass the mic around.
Hi, ma'am. My question is, since, like you mentioned, that very little was recorded and documented about such characters in history. So what did the research procedure look like? What were the references that you used? And till what extent did you have to put your imagination as an input for the book?
Very interesting, because when you call it historical fiction, you have to base it in the time frame, time period, so that you're not saying something that is incorrect. Raj Kapoor's time and Jagat Singh's time was very challenging, because that was the time when Mughal Empire was collapsing and East India Company was coming in, and the princely estates were at loggerheads, and Marathas and Holkars were plundering the princely estates, shifting their sides, sometimes being paid by one side, by the Rathors of Marwar, and then when the Jaipur people raised their price, they shifted the side, they came around. And not only that, there was this Amir Khan, Nawab of Tonk. He played another sort of wicked game. So we had to read, I mean, in fact, I had to read, and she had to cross-question all the time, that what sources I was touching upon. I touched upon Bikaner archives as well, this Dastur Kamwar, and of course many books, Amir Khan's biography, cultural books. There are books that are written by the British writers, the lords and the viceroys and people who are coming in. So one had to recheck. Not just that, the stories, the mythological stories that I have touched upon, whether it was Tulsi Vivah, whether it was the story of Mahananda, I had to cross-check everything. I wanted to be as correct as I could be, because errors are always possible. Nobody can be perfect. Even the historians are not perfect. Always open to reinterpretation. But in my case, I tried to reach out as many sources, written, oral, checking out with the Thakurs, the Rajputs, and the general people around me. So I sort of took it there. And imagination, because how do I know how Raj Kapoor talked to her father? How Raj Kapoor had this love, romantic sessions with her lover under the star-studded sky, on the roof of Amer. You can only play with the imagery, So that's where I took the flight of imagination, and create, as Malashri ji said, imagery biography. That is very interesting genre that she came up with today. And so I went as much as I could. Whatever question came in my head, I re-questioned and went for that source and tried to put it together. Yes, please.
You had mentioned that Todd was against Raj Kapoor. What was the play there? I mean, what did Todd what didn't he like? Her influence on the state? If you can elaborate that.
See, because he was so much influenced by her, that Todd said this Notch girl, in a way, Tavaef, she was so strongly playing that game, and Jagat Singh was under so much her influence that he played no role. He just did not think straight. He left his estate in jeopardy, and he did not care. He left it in the hands of the ministers and the prime minister and the Thakurs to really be the king, be the Maharaja of Jaipur. So he just says, I don't want to write about them. He even condemns Jagat Singh as well. But the interesting part, the Ardharajan, the half empress, I wanted to give her this title, and that's why I came up with this idea, the half empress. But she was positive influence, not always negative. Jagat Singh had many wives, many concubines. So why before her? So why blame her only? But he was, of course, no Nautch girl can ever be sort of seen in a positive light by anybody of that era, and any other woman today is not really seen in a very positive era. Because you don't see the love between Radha and Krishna can be revered, but love between one man and a woman who is the other woman is still a matter of gossip and sort of discarded. Yeah, please.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. The lady in front.
Hi, congratulations, and really looking forward to reading the book. I can't help but wonder, I mean, you're bringing back to life a character that has been pushed out of history. So that makes me wonder whether you faced any opposition while bringing to life this woman who has been deliberately pushed out of history books and, you know, discourse. So I was just wondering if there's been any kind of opposition or if there's been any kind of, you know, antagonism to that.
I don't think really, nothing really happened. It might happen after they read the books. That is one thing. Nobody has read the book, so far so good. But when they read, it will still be better. You know, in Urdu they say, bad hue, badnaam hue, kya hua, naam to hua na. So that is what it is. I had no opposition till the point when I said, I asked the question with these Thakurs, did she commit sati? And quickly, Rajbir Singh Ji Dunlot, the late one, Ranbir Bhai Sahab, his brother, they are both gone. And they said, why are you writing about her? She was, you know, what was she? She was a Nautch girl. She did not let Jagat Singh work at all. And I want to tell you, she never could have committed sati because she was imprisoned. She was a convict. That could have never happened. So far so good. Only two of those people who sort of did not want to say that what she would have done. And they asked me, what does it matter? She was in imprisonment. After that, what happened to her was not really our concern. She was out of the palace. One thing was there, that was clear. But nobody could oppose, and I'm sure nobody will oppose. They will enjoy the story of a beautiful woman. That's what I hope so.
All right.
There's a question of the girl.
To the lady here on the second row.
I want questions to come from all the ladies and the young girls.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and congratulations on your book. So like you mentioned, Ras Kapoor could be considered the Noor Jahan of Jaipur because they had somewhat a similar story. But there's so much about other empresses of her era or before her era, Mughal empresses especially, who rose to power after their marriages to the emperors. And there is very little material to be found about Ras Kapoor. So what kind of difficulties did it create for you to find information about her, and why do you think that is a problem that we can't find anything about her in books or other sources?
You see, there's very little written on the women, especially if they were not married to the Maharaja. The married women like Noor Jahan still got their due in some way. Not only that, in the written records or in the history, the ladies of Zanana are not really being written about. Be it the queens, I'm sure it must have been tough for the queens also. There is not one queen, there are half a dozen queens, there are half a dozen concubines, there is intrigue going on, there is that war for getting the proximity of the Maharaja. Who would he spend the night with? So there must have been a plight. There must have been many things, but not really written. And even in the records, even in the Poti Khana, the record would be married to the daughter of so and the name is lost because you just say Bikani ji and you say Bhatiyani ji. So you don't even give the full name of the person. You only read about the estate. Any other question? Oh, there are two.
The gentleman on the left.
Congratulations, madam.
Thank you.
My question is related to when you research, did you find any genuine painting of her so that it will help the imagination more? And other thing about the genealogy of the lady, like who her parents were, and are there any siblings or their family or anybody who is still living?
When you could not even find, I'll go reverse on your question. When you can't even find where did she disappear, how do you find the siblings? That is not going to be recorded ever, okay? Till we go for DNA and start going for that sort of identification. But the question about, the previous question was what? Did you ask me? Painting, yeah. So the painting part of it, how can there be a genuine painting? The genuine painting is also imagination. She could have never been painted. Even the Maharanis are not really painted. Only the Maharaja's portraits are there. So I found the painting which came very close to sort of being the imagination of that period was in Pundrik Ji ki Haveli in the old city, and which is with the archaeology department of Government of India. And there in an old room upstairs, there are paintings which are fading out and fading away, you know. Those paintings sort of, that's also in a miniature art. So miniature art can never be realistic, you know, that is imagination. But then other painting that I have taken on the cover, that is of Gulab Chandra ji, who is a painter and sitting in somewhere in the city. And I read about his painting in one of the newspapers. I tracked him there. I asked him to take a picture of his painting, and he told me, look here, you can take the painting as a picture, but I can't sort of part with the painting because this I would sell only when my daughter gets married. All natural colors are used. So I got that painting, and Shakir Ali ji, who's a Padma Shri awardee, has the unfinished painting of Ras Kapoor. And I shot that picture as well. Those are not realistic. You know, these are miniature art, can never be realistic. So these are imaginations, and I put that painting in this book, and I say, to my mind, it's like unfinished because Ras Kapoor's story too is unfinished story.
All right, I think we have time for one or two more questions. Yeah, the lady here in front.
Congratulations for your book. I can't wait to read it. Also, I wanted to ask, you must have come across some themes that were related to social norms that must have come across like several times. What relevance do you find in those times and these days? And what should be the takeaway for young girls, especially when they're trying to maneuver career and you know, their own work life and balancing all of that? Like, what would you suggest based on the relevance you found in those times?
It's a difficult one to answer because today's life and that life are poles apart. When my editor was, one of the editors abroad was looking at it, and she said, but you know, there has to be something more of romance, you know, it has to be more expressive. I said, do you realize those were the times when the romance was through the gaze, through the eyes, through the desire that you felt. It was not explicitly sort of displayed in the streets or in the public eye. So, you know, you have to say it very subtly. Now for you, how to balance out of whatever takeaway is, make sure of who you're falling in love with. Very important. Also pursue your talent because she was a great musician and dancer. Also follow wisdom and learn lot of sort of get to education in the real sense. If she learned the game of chess, She asks her father, and she defeats her father in the chess game. She says, the pawn will not move like that. So she understood that. So for you is to understand that farsightedness, and that farsightedness of Ras Kapoor, even though the end is a bit sad, it would at least make you ensure that you live a very happy life whenever you fall in love or you pursue a career.
We have time for one last question.
Oh, this one is going to be difficult. He's a journalist. Yeah,
Okay.
please give it to him also.
Okay, there's a gentleman with the mic at the back, and then we'll take your question also before we end.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask that to write in a historical fiction, I think that it is a very difficult genre. You know, the people don't want to read about the great historical rulers as they think they already know much about them, and they don't want to read the underrated gems as they would consider is unnecessary. So what unique elements can an author use to attract the attention of readers to read a book in this genre?
See, history and historical fiction are two different things. Those who are historians, those who would really like to know the real history, would read history. Historical fiction adds romance, some bit of art, some bit of culture, and makes you sort of get into that period, whichever part it is, whether it is modern Indian sort of Indian history, be it any story about Gandhiji and his son, everybody would like to say and read. And maybe it is about the queen, the crown in England. The fiction is always interesting, and it gives you that freedom to write what you want to really maneuver with. Yes, Prakashji, your question has to come.
Yeah, the last question for today.
From a man of this nature who is a journalist. Now, please, shoot.
My question to you, Tripti, is having written this book, this will become a classic, I can tell you one thing. This will become a classic. And do you think Ras Kapoor was Jaipur की अपनी अनारकली थी?
Yeah, she was anarkali. Only thing, another myth, कि उसको चुनवा नहीं दिया था. She was not sort of put in the sort of buried under a heap of sort of stone sculpture, and she was anarkali in many ways. She was beautiful, but who knows anarkali was that intelligent or not. My Ras Kapoor is Ras Kapoor.
लेकिन अनारकली को तो चुनवा दिया गया था तो दीवारों के पीछे, लेकिन जो हमारी अनारकली थी रस कपूर, वो सड़ के मरी थी नाहरगढ़ में.
ये किसी को पता नहीं कि सड़ के मरी थी कि नहीं मरी थी, ये भी नहीं पता. She had no window, but window of her heart, window of her feelings and her sort of life. Nobody knows whether she died in suffocation, whether she performed sati, whether she disguised as a man and sort of escaped. There is a story where the people like to believe that one of the army men connived with the Marathas, somebody from Maratha land, and wanted to sort of free her from here. She believes him. She gets out. She understands that he's trying to take me away from for somebody else. And then she just runs and disappears in the horizon. So who knows how did she die? My Ras Kapoor, the way I have brought her out, the way she ends her life is something special and connects to Kapoor the camphor.
Thank you, Tripti, for bringing Ras Kapoor alive for all of us. Let's give her a huge round of applause. And thank you all of you for being here today. Thank you very much.
We would like to thank Tripti Pandey, Milee Ashwarya for that beautiful conversation, and to Malashri Lal and Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni to help us launch the book. Tripti Pandey will be available at the book signing stall right here on my right, and we hope to see you at the next session. Do not forget to visit the Festival Bazaar. It's right outside.